Okay, so I guess we just do attendance. Okay, Jody Black.
Lacey Stewart.
Clarissa Sparks.
Finley Whitman.
Anaclet Tavares.
All right, awesome. So this week is on employing good research, and like you said, there's only one question. So we'll just delve in and see what we thought. And the question is, what lessons have you learned to make you more skillful in combating your chosen topic of threat? Anyone want to start us off?
So my topic is on divorce, and I wanted to, as I was reading these things, I think my natural thing is to kind of look at the negative side of divorce and how it affects children. But as I was studying, I've seen that I can't go in with that mindset. Like, yes, I want to see those things, but I want to see all effects that a divorce has on children. And so when I was reading these things, if we go in one track minded, we may not get the right information, and we may be like, oh no, and maybe some bad science, we go with some bad science instead of really looking at the good science. And so I think staying a little open-minded, even though most of the statistics and research shows that it has negative effects. But I still think no matter what the topic is, it's important that we go in open-minded to see what else there is out there, and to use that information and say, well, yeah, it's a lot of it's negative, but there was this one thing that said da 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 about it. And so I think that it's important that we find the good science, even if we don't 100% agree with the good science sometimes, instead of trying to manipulate the science to fit what we're trying to push.
Yeah, going along with that, I feel like, because I don't have divorce, but just thinking about what you're talking about, sometimes it might be even better for the family to be in a divorce, depending on their situation. If he's an abusive parent, he or she, then it might end up being better and a good experience even for the child not being with that parent anymore. So even if you're looking or going into it in a one-minded way, it is better to just dialectic view on your situation, because there's always the good and the bad. So
I had that thought too.
Hi, Lori.
Oh, hi,
Hi,
Laura.
sorry. Had trouble connecting.
That's okay. Did you still want to be the data organizer? Is that what?
Sure, I can do
Okay.
that.
yeah, we just started. I was going to take notes for you, but since we just started, I think you're good to go. So
Okay.
I really like that you brought that up, Finley, because my topic is fatherlessness, and so that goes a lot with, I talked about it, divorce a little bit in my paper, when she was like, don't do two threats, but they go so hand in hand, because statistically, when you look at the research and the data, as soon as no-fault divorce became a thing, this fatherlessness skyrocketed. It opened that door. And I think it's important to look at both sides and understand that sometimes, despite what all the studies are saying, that, there are circumstances where it is better, like you said, as much as I want to push for fatherlessness is not a good thing, there are circumstances where it would be better. And so it's all just, it's circumstantial, but it's good for people to know both sides. And this hits really close to me because I was married and divorced before I joined the church, and I have 2 kids, and their father is not in the picture at all. So I get the aspect of divorce and how detrimental it is, and fatherlessness, and seeing what my kids have to go through. And, reading the statistics, sometimes it does hurt. It hurts. It's upsetting when I read that they're at higher risk in every single category for not doing as well in school, for, violence, for living in poverty. But, that just makes me more aware of we don't have to be that. That's the odds are high for that. And so it makes me work even harder to make sure to try to not end up that way. So as much as I don't want to hear those statistics because it's hard to take in, it's important for me to hear them because it makes me that much more aware of where I don't want to be and to try to not be a statistic. And I know not everybody will have that ambition and drive to try to not fall in that category, but for me personally, it's very important. And I'm actually grateful that I have that knowledge to know what I'm up against so that I can try to prevent it from happening before we get there. So it's going to be a struggle, but you know, I'm grateful for it. So I definitely like research like this, and you have to make sure that what you're reporting is very factual, and that you're not leaving anything out, because people will really take it in and use that to make life decisions that affect not only them but future generations too.
I think that's a good comment. When you were talking, I thought how my thought was, you know, knowledge really is what drives our behavior. And even though you don't like looking at those statistics or hearing that because it's frustrating, I'm sure, to see, gosh, that's not a great start, or challenging for your kids, like you said. But knowing that does help, because it can help you be aware of, you know, how to avoid such pitfalls. And so I think when I was reading all this stuff, I was like, holy cow, they twist the truth so bad, you know, with like, sometimes you'll show statistics of the medicine, you know, all that medicine talk stuff really was interesting to me. And I just thought, that's crazy how much we rely on certain knowledge, but that they're not held to certain accountabilities. And so if we're getting information that's not reliable, then our actions can be misguided. Like, for example, taking a drug that may not be the best one for us. And so I think you just touched a little bit on how information helps guide. Does anyone have any other thoughts?
I do. So my topic, I actually wrote myself down for 2 topics because one of them was the other category, and I emailed back and forth with our professor. And my topic, like my main one, is hurrying up children's development. So like what I wanted to focus on was how we as parents, or we as a society, sometimes treat children as miniature adults, and how that can sometimes be detrimental for the children. And so when I was emailing her, she was like, this is kind of going to be a hard one for you because there's not a lot of facts or journals written about this, but whatever you find, just go ahead and use it. And she's like, so keep yourself open to other ideas. So I wrote myself down for pornography too. But just going over all of these different videos that we had to watch, and then the evaluating research paper that we had to read, I feel like it helped me a lot to understand what kind of words to look into, or like different things to look into for my first topic, because I really want to expand on that one. But yeah, like it's just super interesting to me how some people just mold the truth to what they want it to be. And even when Jody was talking right now, I kind of was thinking of the TED Talk that we had to watch, and how they compare their own medicine, for example, with like the other people's medicine, but they give the other medicine in super crazy amounts so that theirs seems like the better one. And that was just kind of mind-blowing to me, because then as I was watching it, I'm like, then they list all these side effects and they say them super fast so that you can't really catch on them, and it's like, it even may cause death or suicidal thoughts or blah, 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 blah. And it's just kind of scary to think about that all these things are being given to us without proper facts and without people actually doing the research for them. And I think that's something important that we need to start doing, or that I need to start doing, because I know that sometimes I'm like, oh, well, it says that it's good and that it's good for my body, but it might not actually be that way. So that's something important that I took away from it.
I was just going to add really quick. One thing that stood out to me was that, you know, everybody has an agenda, and sometimes we want to research something because it affects us personally. Like for me, divorce affected my children, and I worried about that also. But I think that we need to always be thinking about what the purpose of the researcher, what purpose they have in doing the research. And it's pretty easy to see where they stand on an issue, and then just be really aware of that, because that's one thing I've noticed is people have an opinion and then they look for all the facts and other research to support their opinion. And even though that's not always the case, I think we need to be really aware of that. And I like what you said about having the information and using it to maybe as child life advocates, we need to have the information and be aware of where the risks are so we know how to teach people, because there's always going to be people that fall into those categories. And instead of just trying to prevent things from happening, we sometimes need to approach those people with the knowledge that we've gained and then teach from that. But yeah, I've been amazed at, sometimes you look at research and it looks like it makes so much sense, and then when you dig a little bit deeper, it's way off the mark. So it's been interesting this week for sure.
Yes. My paper is going to be about cohabitation, and as many people may think cohabitation is not as reliable, and as stable as a marriage, but the fact is that a lot of people are choosing their route, for some reason, and knowing that the consequences, and because there's a lot of negative consequences and complications for both individuals. I like that. There is a dictum, old saying that easy come, easy go, because there is no written and legal commitment. Cohabitation normally comes to a dead end. In other words, it's a short-lived and short-term relationship, and it's not a permanent relationship. So, and also it brings uncertainty. Okay, for the simple fact that partners live together without marriage commitment cannot enjoy their sexual life or emotionally, as they are not sure about their future. You know, uh, it's a fact that the reason is that an individual who lives together with his life partner may also have sex with another person, which may prompt to serious outcomes. Believe it or not, cohabitators, are free to engage in sexual intercourse with someone else than a married couple. And it also is a fact, it's been proven. Another aspect that I would like to emphasize is the separation. Um, might result into many complications when it comes to partition of financial assets, since it is the proper way, like divorce. If you divorce, you go to court, and the judge will come up with stipulation, this and that. But when you cohabitate, there's no legal perspective. And another thing that some people don't realize that is the disappointment, because isn't because the reality of couples who cohabitate when they step towards marriage don't happen. Living together for many people just means to step a step closer to marriage. So when it doesn't happen, there's an emotional disappointment, and last but not least, I would like to mention the number one reason why people decide to cohabitate, uh, which is to get to know the other person better. But this also been proved that's not true. This theory has been proved that's not true. It's wrong. It's wrong by many research. Indeed, even thought living together does demonstrate the general living habits of a partner, it cannot give you a full insight into your character if they are resistant in revealing. So some couples can be together for many, many years before they feel that seeing their partner true colors, and marriage can break down after many years or many decades. So one aspect also that I personally believe that's important is that in cohabitation, you know, there's a high risk, for children abuse and neglect, because usually it happens in the marriage, but it's less frequently. So for some reason, the research has been proved that the children will suffer more in the cohabitation settings.
I liked 2 points. Well, one of them that Lori talked about when she was talking about the statistics and knowing the things. It's important to report the actual facts because it helps us understand where people are coming from, and that is huge. Because if we go back to like the divorce or fatherlessness topic, knowing those statistics, knowing the daily struggles and battles that they have, is going to help us to be able to get through to them a lot more and understand why they are the way they are, or at least partially. So that's a huge factor, is understanding that we're all different, we're all coming from different walks of life, and that there's going to be different factors that are going to be playing a huge part into where people are and where they're able to go mentally when we work with them. And another huge thing that I was reminded of is the need to be able to connect with people in ways that they understand. Everybody learns differently. Everybody takes information in differently. And so we need to be able to find ways to connect with them. Like I remember this one time, it was a long time ago, I was helping someone study. They were studying for an exam, and they didn't understand the math problems and what was going on. And I was like, how can I get through to them? So I started talking about things that they liked. They were like a mechanic. And so I changed the story problems and put it like with car parts. And then they were able to solve the problems. It was as simple as taking one little thing and changing it, getting on their level to something that they could understand. And so I think that's a huge thing that we have to take into consideration, is making sure when we speak to whoever we're advocating for, our audience, we have to make sure whenever we're advocating who our audience is. We have to do our homework, find out who our audience is, and be able to, take our message and deliver it to them on a level that they're going to understand. Because what we think ourselves of how we deliver it and what we, how we understand a message is not how others are going to understand that. And so that's very important, especially in the research world, is to be able to still take the data and not manipulate the facts, but be able to deliver it in a way that whoever your audience is, which will be different, will understand.
I like that. I like what you just said. But how you connect that to the cultural imperialism? Because what you said is what should be done. But after, I don't know if you watch the video, the cultural imperialism, it goes in contrary what you just said. Because like United States, for example, or other developed countries, they trying to force their rules in other countries, not understanding what they believe, what they are ideologies or cultures. So what's your opinion about it?
That's a tough one. I personally felt from watching that video that I mean the facts don't lie. In the United States is trying to promote a message that they have twisted the facts on. And it's pretty cut and dry when you look at the statistics, when it says that they're promoting the use of condoms and stuff like that. But in those countries, the statistics of AIDS and HIV have gone up. So I don't agree with that. I think that it's kind of like what we talked about last week with the UN. I think a lot of bullying goes on. I think a lot of, funding is a huge factor. Like we looked at this week too with people, if you have more money or more manpower, your message gets across, and that's not necessarily right. I think people need to take some of their emotion out of it, and they need to look just at the facts. And I think that somehow, which I don't even know where to begin with on this level, that money should not be a factor. There should not be, bullies in that sense, that, everybody should be able to walk into, the UN or a meeting like that and really be an equal, and really just everybody needs to look at the facts and what is actually working, and then, make decisions based off of that.
I think you're right. I think that there's so much, like, I don't know if you guys, like, on social media or whatever, ever look at, like, some of the posts. New study just discovered blah, 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 weight loss and all these crazy things. Oh, this actually doesn't affect kids at all, so let's do it. And I, like, roll my eyes every time. I'm like, okay, well, give me, first of all, I want to see the academic journal. I want to see the studies that were done. I want to see it all, because, if you don't have anything to back up your facts and you're purely basing it on emotion, then it's not going to necessarily be truth. And, like, I love French fries. I love French fries. I think they're the greatest thing. And when I found out French fries were unhealthy for you, yes, I was upset. But instead of eating French fries all day, every day, all the time, until I turn into this 1,200-pound person, I figured, well, they're probably not healthy for me, so I should eat them in moderation, even though I love them so much. And so even though, like, my emotion was like, eat French fries all the time, but the scientific part of me, or like the factual part of me, was like, if I do that, I will die. And so we have to, I think it's important that we kind of look at, we need to look at some of these statistics that way. And it's important that when we advocate and we look at the facts about, whatever we're advocating for, as far as families and children go. I think that it's important that, yes, we do need to be passionate about what we're studying, but we need to have the facts, and we need to make sure that we're using good science. And as I was reading these videos, I was like, I want to share all of these on Facebook right now, because they were so informational. And I just thought, man, how great would it be if every American could self-educate themselves based on these scientific journals, and on all these studies that have gone on, like, oh wait, that's a twisted statistic, that's not true, or, and I think those things are important. And I think, I don't know if any of you have taken this class. I don't know if it's a prereq for this class or not, but the research methods class, so I hated the class, but I probably learned more from that class than I learned in a lot of my other classes, just because I understood what it meant to have science back up, what, and how to look at a study and go, oh, this is what it's saying. It's not just a bunch of crazy words that I don't understand. And I think that's been great for me as we've been taking this class, and I've been reading different articles on my topic, because it really educated me to know what to look for, to know what I'm looking for. And this week was just another witness of that, saying, this is back up your work and know how to read about these statistics, or about not just the statistics. I don't know why I keep saying that, but like just anything. Know what you're reading, understand it, and know how to weed out good things and bad things. And I think that, we could also be an advocate for that, on our social media. I'm going to go share those 2 videos on my social media page because I think they're incredible, and I think everybody should watch them. And so I think that it's also important that we encourage, self-education that way, to know so people know what they're looking for. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that because, like, it's hard for those people to just post the facts, because if they did, then they know that they wouldn't make the money that they need, so that's how they get to us. That's how they are like, okay, this is how they're going to buy it if we specifically target this kind of emotion or this kind of population or something. So I completely understand where they're coming from, but it's not fair to us as the consumers that we think that we're getting something when we're actually getting something completely different. So I do think that that's why it's important for us to educate ourselves and learn how to do the research, because it is hard to do research. I don't know about you guys, but I struggle a lot reading actual research journals because I'm like, what is that? And I don't know if it's because like English is my second language or something, but I just don't understand most of the things and I have to reread it like 5 times. So it is kind of challenging for me, but at the same time, I feel like it helps a lot with the kind of decisions I'm trying to make. And to, like I said, do that kind of research to educate ourselves more and also help others make better decisions. So yeah, I forgot what else I was going to say, but I was thinking something as you were talking. It'll come to me again, hopefully. But that's just something that I wanted to get out of the way because I completely understand how they would try to appeal to the emotional side of things. So
Yeah, you guys brought up another really good point too. I was thinking after Anacleto made his last comment about the video. Another thing too is to really pay attention to, I think it's important when we talked earlier, one of the earlier weeks, about how when, we need to be an example, like we need to, what we're advocating for, we need to be applying to our lives. Because another thing, when you were asking Anacleta, how should we know about with the video and those people, I would be looking to those people that are advocating for their, message of, it's okay to be promiscuous and it's okay. Are those people doing that? Are they practicing what they preach? Because I always think of the movie like Erin Brockovich. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, when she brings in the contaminated water and offers it to the lawyer and was like, we brought it in after the lawyer was like, oh, there's no problem. And she didn't want to drink the water. And it's like, well, you need to back up, you need to practice what you preach. And again, I think it ties in really importantly to the whole money factor and factoring in, why are these people promoting this message? If people have the disease, there's drugs, there's money, every person that has HIV, there's a profit to be made for medications. There's profits, for contraceptives, exception. So you have to really look at what we learned this week, who's advocating and what are their motives? Because if you start looking behind the words that they're speaking, you start seeing a completely different message.
So just listening to all this, my topic is pornography, and I'm trying to see some ways that it fits and doesn't fit, because in a lot of ways I think it doesn't fit. Like people engage in pornography, but I think I think all of us could say, yeah, pornography is bad, but I don't feel like there's, like LGBT rights activists, the equivalent of saying, yes, pornography. Do you know what I mean? And so I don't know how, there's no, the pornography kills or all that kind of stuff. There's no profit in it for them. Like the makers of pornography have all the profit, but the people who are getting their message across that is against pornography, they don't have any hidden agenda. Does that make sense? I feel like their agenda is out there to just protect society, whereas like some of these, like the medicine, other companies who are, quote, helping society, have a hidden agenda, whether it's making more money and things like that. But the pornography, the people who are against it, I don't feel like have a hidden agenda. So I feel like it's a little bit different in maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but I don't feel as not gullible, but I don't feel that I have as high of a chance to be misled by the research that is about the negativity effects of pornography. Does that make sense? Whereas every other one, I feel like, on a lot of those issues, you have to kind of play the devil's advocate with some of the research. Like, why are they saying that it's just as good for children to be raised, you know, by a gay couple versus those things? But this is one issue that I feel like you don't have to like, why are they saying it's bad? Because I feel like everyone knows it's bad.
You're right. There's not a ton of that. There's a lot of people that are, I mean, it's like smoking. A lot of people aren't like, there's not like posters like, we have to smoke, we have to smoke. But there are people that use it just because they have an addiction or they, whatever, they've created a habit, and it's the same with pornography. They've created a habit to the point where they have to use it. And so it's not necessarily they're like, no, don't shut down pornography, da 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 da. It's just more of a habit forming where it's not, I mean, I guess some people might be passionate about it, but you don't find like, I mean, like you said, there's no like group for it, like a rights group. Yeah. So, but yeah, it is a little bit different in that way where you have more people where like the advocates are advocating against it and there's nobody really advocating for it. Like there's no group or anything doing anything like that. So it is a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because I don't know, I guess I'm just thinking out of all of the different things that we have read in this class, and I don't even know if it has been for my other class. I get all my classes mixed up. But at least I think it was last week what we were reading, that how marriage is like inhumane and that you need to have an open relationship because then it allows the person to like be more faithful to who they're really with, but they can go and have fun with someone else whenever they want. So I think that can be an outlet or an activism move for pornography, because people might think like, oh, well, it's because this way I can be more faithful to my wife without actually doing it with someone else, but I can watch somebody else do it, kind of a thing, you know? So there's no specific group for it, but that might be the mentality behind it. And maybe if you were to find some research from that, I don't know, but that's just what I thought. And I hope it helped.
That's good. You presented an angle that somebody actually would give an excuse for pornography. I think it's such something that's done in private that people aren't out there saying this is why I do it. And so that's why it's, I don't know, I think it's, I appreciate hearing some other reason of why someone might like it, because then it does drive what I would want, almost like the comeback, the research comeback. You know, I feel like you need to know the answers to those type of things from research. And so I guess that's why you want to at times play devil's advocate, so that you know what you can be coming back with that will actually make a difference.
Yeah, that was a really great point, Clarissa, because I can't remember if it was in that book that I shared with you guys, like Every Week Standing for the Family, but I think there was some talk about it in there, because there are people that actually try to promote that as a good thing, like as this, it keeps me from cheating on my spouse. It keeps me from actually, you know, like I can satisfy that need without physically, and they think that that's okay type thing. They think that viewing is not cheating. So again, it's the whole mentality. And like you said, Jody, trying to be able to understand your audience and understand the way that they think and view things is not the way that you think and view that. You would view that and go, to me, that is not being faithful, but there are people out there that think that it's not. And so it's good to look at that and be able to have a counter argument against the point.
I also like what you said, Jody, about playing devil's advocate no matter the topic as well. Because not only does that strengthen your argument, you know, it gives you a chance to see, you know, what if there comes a time where you really have to, like, you literally have to get on a soapbox and say, listen, you know, these are the facts, you know, if there's ever that opportunity for any of us, which I don't know if there will be, but if there is, when you are writing a paper or presenting a topic or whatever, when you do take that opportunity to play devil's advocate and say, well, which ways is this going to be argued? You can go, okay, well then let's find another source that talks about this and that talks about that. And I think that can really strengthen your paper or your talk or whatever, and your knowledge about the topic. And so I think that's a great point as far as writing our papers and doing our research for our work, is to really kind of look and see, where am I going to be attacked? Where can I build up, and how can I write about it?
Yeah. Just to add something about the cultural imperialism, because I'm from pretty much Africa. Geographically, I'm from Africa, because Cape Verde is right there, the 500 miles at the west coast of Africa. So, to be honest, I felt, I'll not say angry when I was watching this, but I feel like disappointed. How come like developed countries take advantage of the other countries, the third world country, and I think the message that should be spread is that one by Dr. Edward Green. He answered that perfectly. By saying that if sexual behavior is changing in the direction of more monogamy, fidelity, and more abstinence, integrated, it greatly brings down the infection rates. I think this is the message that the United States, France, Germany, all the developed countries should spread to the Africa countries or the third world countries, not by promote something that's not gonna help them. And actually, the international community did not like what he said, because they know this is true. Because if you see, it goes hand to hand with the gospel also, what he promotes. But they didn't like it because there's something behind it. I don't know why it's behind it, but there's something behind it. I don't know what is behind. And what he said, it's absolutely true. Because for the simple fact that when you are faithful to your partner or spouse, the probability for you to get infected by any sexual transmitted disease decreased drastically. That's true. And also, abstinence prior to the marriage speak for itself. You're not gonna get any, STDs if you don't do it. You know what I mean? So, but I was shocked, like I said, to see, how much pressure some third world countries suffer from the developed countries, and sometimes they are even blackmailed, which is sad, if they don't do or implement what they, some of the principles. And interesting enough, for example, infection rating is going up United States, all right? But they go to these developed countries, like such Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, whatever, and tell them how to prevent, the AIDS, which make me think about the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 5. How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eyes, while there is still a beam in your own eye? First get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eyes. In other words, we must fix our own backyard before we tell our neighbors what to do. So my question is, what is the real intent to develop countries behind all this? What they are trying to promote? Because they are definitely not helping the developed country fighting against this horrible disease.
I think that it has to do with profit, and I think it might have to do with pride, because for them to turn around after they have tried to force all these countries to do things and to say that they were wrong, I think that would cause maybe a lot of problems for the United States. I think it might cause people to question other agendas that they've forced on countries. I think pride is a huge factor after you get so far, so deep into something that could be one of the reasons why they're not. But another thing that I loved with the video is I loved the children that talked. It made me think about when I talked at the beginning of this meeting with statistics, that you can beat the odds. You don't have to be what everything is around you. and I'm grateful that they have the information to make that decision to be abstinent, to not follow the crowd. That was another point that I wanted to make, is that it's important. There was a question, I think, for one of the journal things about what are some of the effects or consequences of poorly written sources, and one of the things I'd answered was that it makes people they can create weekly reports, write-ups from that, if that makes sense. Like if somebody says something and they don't do their research and then they write a research paper on it, it kind of just, it starts like a ripple effect. But then once you have like so many papers that use that, and it makes it look like that's right, or that's the normal, like, it almost makes like credible resources seem like not credible because they're like the minority. And so it's really important to make sure that we're looking at what's going across. What?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I agree with you, and but I said the hope is that they are more educated now, So you see even like you said, the young children's talking about it. And I was emotionally, touched when I heard it in my own language, Portuguese, when the little girl and the boy from Mozambique was speaking Portuguese, how they lost their mom. I felt in my heart, you know what I mean? So, but what I'm saying is that they are educated now. They don't want to go to the route that their parents used to go, And also, I like the president of Uganda. He didn't care what USA was saying. He said, no, we do the ABC because the ABC is working. So I don't care what you're saying, what you think. This is what we're doing, and it's decreased the age. So we're gonna focus on this. We're gonna do that. I like that because now they have some courage to step against the powerful countries. They are educated. The community. So that's the hope. And I wanted to see that to continue because sometimes you don't have to rely on those developed countries because they look for their own interests. They don't look for your own interests.
Well, I think that's important too. It's an important reminder to us that as we advocate in whatever subjects that we're going to, as each of us, go our separate ways when we're done here with school, that we're going to be the minority group. But just because we're the minority group doesn't mean that we're not right and that we're not going to get through to people. It's people like that, like the lady that was speaking and fighting against it. They can pass whatever laws they want, but they can still preach the facts, and they're going to get through to people. And like those children, they're going to be able to make a decision for themselves. And just because they promote, promiscuity, those children are still choosing not to do that. So it's important that you might be the minority, but you're still gonna, save lives.
How are we on time? Do we just go for an hour, or I thought do we always end at 11?
No, we're supposed to go for 50 to 60 minutes.
Okay.
So we got about 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
So I don't know if you guys took that class I was talking about, the research methods class, if you guys saw, or if you've just seen on your own, the movie or the Nova special, A Deadly Deception. If you haven't, BYU Idaho, I believe, has it in their library of videos. I recommend watching it. I think it's like an hour, but if you're sitting there, you have an hour to kill, I recommend watching it. It's really interesting just on the topic of research and on the topic of how manipulation can come in because of a personal agenda. And I think that it's important for us. I think it's a good warning for us as well. Because in this video, if you guys decide, I hope you guys decide to watch it because it's really interesting. It'll make you a little bit mad when you watch it, but it's good. But it talks about how a minority group was taken advantage of and they weren't even seen as human. And I think that it's important that when we do start advocating for what we're advocating for, that we still see the opposing side as human. And that we still see them as, even though we may feel totally attacked by them at certain points in our life, but we do see them as, okay, they're really, like, and you're going to want to get, and I'm sure I still get mad, even though, but it's still important to see them like, okay, so we don't advocate for same-sex marriage, but are people that have same-sex relationships and same-sex feelings still humans? Yes. And we still need to recognize that. And so I think no matter, obviously ours isn't going to be as drastic as, you know, some of these, like the clips, like the imperialism video or the deadly deception video. But I think that's still an important aspect of what we do, and that we keep that in mind as we read studies and as we read facts and stuff about what we are advocating for, because, you know, yeah, some people may be trying to push an agenda, but we need to try to understand why. Sometimes that may help us in our argument or in our stance. So anyway, but if you guys, I can try to find the link and message it to you all to watch the video, because I watched it. So we watched it in class, and then I watched it like 2 times after that because I thought it was so interesting. But anyway.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, send it.
I will find it. When I find it, I will send it to everybody. Maybe I'll send it in an email or something. But yeah, super interesting. I recommend to watch, especially as we're writing this paper, and, you know, just for future knowledge. It's interesting.
So I was listening to a conference talk this morning by Elder Palmer, and he was talking about how it was given the last conference, and he said his problem was, how can I get missionaries to be obedient? And then he had this experience of reading the scriptures, and instead it changed him to, how can I get them to feel my love for me, feel the Lord's love for them? And I think that goes along with what you're saying about seeing people as human, instead of thinking, you know, how, I don't know, because I think it's so easy to drive your point home and stuff, but to really, as advocates, be coming from a love. That's what it needs to stem from. That we're not just trying to push these good values because we're taking the high moral ground or something, but because we truly believe that this is what is best for people, and because it's best for people, we're motivated out of our love for them. And so I think as advocates, that's, you know, like anything we do in life, coming from that standpoint of just trying to love like the Savior loved will help us be the best advocate we can be. Maybe we should, I don't know, any other comments, and then after that, go ahead and do the summary.
Lori, your mic's muted.
I know, I'm trying to, oh.
I was like, she's talking, I can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was just going to make the comment. A thought that came to mind was that quote that said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I really think that is the key, because when you look at people that are maybe stating views that are so contrary to ours, I like to follow the example of our leaders, our church leaders, because they don't back down. They're bold in what they believe, but they really try to see other people as, you know, worthwhile and maybe understand their views, so we don't come across as just being so narrow-minded that we don't try and understand somebody else's perspective. So, you know, I think teaching people to be wise consumers of education, teaching them how to sort through it, and guiding them on finding what is legitimate and what's not, because we can only do so much in advocating for a certain cause, but teaching people, you know, how to search through it themselves and how to be educated educated, I think, is going to be the thing that has the longest lasting effect. So I just wanted to add that.
You want to do the summary for us?
Yep. All right, so I'll give it a go here. All right, we started off by talking about how sometimes issues hit close to home, like with divorce and fatherlessness and no-fault divorce. But when we get the facts, sometimes it helps us to look harder at, or not look harder, to work harder at being the best that we can be and to be grateful for the knowledge that we have. Because reports and research drive behavior, we need to be careful that the knowledge that we're looking at is reliable. We don't want to be teaching people things that might affect their behavior and be basing it on things that aren't research, that hasn't been accountable. We talked about watching the videos and how people can mold the truth to fit their opinions, and that there's so much misrepresentation of information, people that aren't actually doing the research. We talked about cohabitation, and that was a good example about how research, people try and use research to justify their beliefs. But one example was that people cohabitate to get to know each other, and that was their number one reason. But in fact, cohabitation doesn't take, getting to know somebody takes a long period of time, and you can't do that usually just by cohabitating for a limited amount of time. We talked about understanding diversity and how it's important to understand where other people are coming from, and as advocates, there's a huge need to be able to connect to people at their level and use teaching that's really applicable to our audience, and try not to manipulate the facts to fit the audience. Some people try to force issues. We talked about how some of the videos show that people were just trying to force their issue, and that perhaps funding affects, well, we know not perhaps, but that funding affects the messages that we're trying to get across. People that have money are able to relay their messages. Let's see. As advocates, we need to be able to use good science. Even though we're passionate about a subject, we still need to be able to base our teaching on facts and not just emotions. We need to be able to really know and understand research, even though I think we all have challenges in reading research articles. We need to be able to learn how to sort through it and understand it, and we need to encourage other people to be self-educated. Let's see. We always need to look at people's motives behind their research. What is their research goal? And that can help us understand personal agendas. And it's important to play the devil's advocate, because we need to clearly understand both sides of an issue. Sometimes when we look at research, it can make you feel guilty or make people feel guilty because it hits so close to home. And people that are offended by research can sometimes ignore the research. We talked about needing to be sure that our backyards are in order, and before we go out and try and advocate something, we need to make sure that we're doing our part. And then we talked about just being able to beat the odds and teaching people that they can do that too. And then the last thing we talked about was just following our church leaders and learning how to love each other and making that the foundation of our teaching, just our motives, and that people will listen when they know we're motivated by love. That's it.
That was a great recap.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it for today then.
All righty.
Okay.
All right, I'll
Thank you,
take
guys.
Have a good long weekend.
Okay, bye.
Oh, you too.